The main question I have about this movie is, why was this not released around Halloween time? Why is this a summer movie? Haunted Mansion was directed by Justin Simien and stars Lakeith Stanfield, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Jared Leto, and more. And here, a team of top-tier experts are brought in with different traits that all bring something to the table to help out a woman who has now inherited a house which is haunted and will bring everyone into a supernatural adventure. Haunted Mansion is a remake of a movie that came out in the early 2000s with Eddie Murphy, and it's Disney's latest attempt, essentially, of trying to take a theme park ride and recreate the magic that they have with Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, they bring on a lot of the creative team from Pirates into this movie to kind of revive and get a new series. And to be perfectly honest, I hate to be this way, but I'm going to be very negative in this entire review, because this movie just isn't right. This movie is, for one, something where I don't know who this movie's made for. It's split between having parts that are clearly made specifically for children and other parts that are clearly made for adults. This movie feels almost akin to a horror film at times, and genuinely I feel like at some points is just not suitable for every young child to come to, with this being marketed as a Disney movie. Now, I'm sure it's kind of showed the trailer, but I don't think it's quite right. This movie doesn't feel tonally consistent in any sense, form, or fashion. This movie also feels excessive. It feels try hard. Like everything is trying to be as big and flashy and creative as possible, but that doesn't always pan out in the best possible way. This movie sometimes just feels like a lot of shows and lights and noise, but with nothing behind it. The characters in here also are fine for the most part. I didn't really connect with a lot of them. I thought they were fun for the most part, and no one here is necessarily annoying or bad. I just found them to be serviceable. It was a movie that I seemed like I was just going through the motions of watching, and the movie didn't feel like there was much going on behind it. There are some comedic scenes in here that are genuinely very funny. There are some moments where I did laugh a lot, and there are a couple moments in here that were scary or intense or fun action, but that's far and few between. Largely, this is a very CGI-heavy movie that's got a lot of tropes to it, and it just, again, doesn't feel right for the whole family. It's very mature in parts, then very childish. And sometimes there's jokes at parts where there shouldn't be jokes. There's a lack of jokes when there should be. The movie's just all over the place, and it's very much too long. This movie does not need to be as long as it is. It has a lot in it that doesn't need to be in there. A lot of just padded extra fluff and attempts to make characters do things which don't always pan out without giving any spoilers. Another big problem I have with this movie is the inconsistencies. There are certain things that happen in this house that we come to discover in the second act can follow you outside the house, and also when you're in the house, certain things happen. And there are very specific things that have to take place for that with rules. But none of them are consistent, and if you watch the movie, you'll notice very quickly nothing lines up. It just works when the writers want it to work, and when they don't want it to work, it just doesn't then. And there's just a lot of inconsistencies like that. Also, this movie doesn't have the energy that Pirates or even Jungle Cruise had. There's not a lot to it. It feels weird, if that makes sense. It just doesn't have the same. It feels very rehearsed, is the best way I can put it. Very manufactured. It doesn't have a feeling of spontaneity and creativity and just that Disney magical fun. It's lacking there, and in turn feels like a huge letdown with a ton of potential that's wasted and thrown out the window. And the thing is, Disney is constantly trying to recreate this kind of magic, but like I said, this movie definitely failed at it. The performances in here, I'd say, are pretty good for the most part. I'd say my favorite character in here was Danny DeVito. He's probably the best part of this movie, but there's a lot of characters in here, too, that also just don't need to exist. I also found the kid that's in here to be one of my favorite characters because he's just the voice of reasoning. He's always just looking at everyone like, you're crazy, you really, what? And I respected that from him. Overall, this movie is a very disappointing attempt to make a Disney film that could spawn a franchise. It doesn't pack much of a punch, it doesn't bring much new to the table, and overall fails at most of its attempts. I was very unimpressed with Haunted Mansion and would not recommend the theater experience for this. This is something that, if at worst you were bored one day, you could watch on stream, but even then I wouldn't recommend it that way. It's just not a good film as far as I'm concerned. I didn't have a good time with it, and I think Disney could have done so much better. I'm going to give Haunted Mansion a 3 out of 10. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see y'all next time.